Have you ever had someone leave so suddenly, so unexpectedly, that your mind keeps circling the same painful questions on repeat? What happened? Why didn't they tell me sooner? Was any of it real, what we experienced between us? And the one that can haunt you the most, will they come back? Before we begin today, I want to say something. At the end of our last episode, we shared that we'd be closing out this attachment theory series by answering your questions about attachment, and we're still going to honor that conversation. But this week, something happened. A video we shared about sudden, one-sided breakups struck a nerve in a very big way, and the response was absolutely immediate. Comments, so much pain, so much confusion, so many people trying to understand how someone can love you, connect with you, build a life with you, and then suddenly walk away. And as we sat with those questions, we realized something important. This is attachment theory, but not just in theory. It's happening in real life. This is what attachment wounds look like when fear takes over for any of us. When overwhelm wins, when someone doesn't have the skills to stay present inside of intimacy, conflict, uncertainty, and or emotional risk. So today, we're doing something a little different. Instead of answering attachment questions in the abstract, we're answering them through one of the most painful experiences people live through, a breakup that felt sudden, one-sided, and impossible to make sense of. Welcome to Love Shack Live, the show for people standing at a relationship crossroads, trying to make sense of conflict, distance, heartbreak, and the growing emotional gap between two people who once felt deeply connected. I'm Stacey Bartley, relationship mentor, and I'm here with my co-host and partner, Tom, and our daughter, Brooke. And today we're unpacking one of the hardest relationship experiences that people face, when someone you love walks away, and when you're left trying to understand something that we are never fully able to explain.
Hey, thank you for coming. Welcome to the Love Shack.
So, here's what sparked today's conversation. Recently, we posted a What Would Stacey Say video. It's day 48, to be exact, answering this question we hear all the time. How do we make peace with a breakup that felt sudden and one-sided, especially when you thought that person was your forever person? What really stood out reading those comments was people weren't just asking why the relationship ended. The deeper questions were, how do I make sense of something that ended without a real explanation? Like, how do I move forward when I never get closure? And this is exactly where attachment patterns show up in real life. So as relationships deepen, the emotional stakes get higher. Often what we see is someone with anxious tendencies leans toward reassurance and connection, and someone with avoiding tendencies can start feeling overwhelmed by the closeness. And if someone doesn't have the skills to navigate that internal pressure, the tension actually, the closer the relationship gets, the harder it can feel to stay connected. I probably ought to do that again. If someone doesn't have the internal skills to navigate that internal pressure, the tension, the closer the relationship gets, the harder it can feel to stay in the relationship. So today we're going to explore this through some of the questions that people actually shared with us on this social media post. Questions about why someone would leave suddenly, whether they might come back is a big one, how to stop blaming yourself, and what to actually do next. So let's look at some of the questions that come in. Brookie, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can ask the question.
Perfect. The first question is, wouldn't this mean that they will continue to do the same thing to the next partner until they work on themselves and work on those triggers? And I'm just going to give a little backstory of that, because in the video that these comments are on, Mom 2 already said the question we answered was, how do you survive when a person that you thought was your forever person kind of ghosts you, breaks up with you, and doesn't give you any closure? And Mom 2 explained in that video what was happening to the person who did it. They had a lot of internal conflict. They had a lot of stuff that was going on in their brain. And instead of coming to the person and saying, this is why I'm breaking up with you, they just kind of didn't have the tools to do that. And they ghosted them. So the person is asking, doesn't that mean they'll continue to do the same thing to the next partner if they get triggered again?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We don't really think about getting better at relationships by doing them, but we do, just like anything else that we become masterful at. And so the things that I'm challenged with, that I struggle with, I absolutely will repeat them. And hopefully along the way, as relationships play out, I will see it, get better at it, and become more masterful at it as I go. And that doesn't give us a lot of comfort, right? Because commonly in the relationship space, we want to think of it as a one and done, or this is my special person. And we really desire it to go well. It's very much, that's why we call it attachment, right? It's very much a place where I had these precious moments with you and I don't even want to think about letting go of you. However, I think about my own relationship journey and many of our clients. I was in relationships that were really, really special and important to me, but either I or they or both of us weren't in a place to sustain it personally, internally, because of what we were navigating personally in our lives. But the answer to the question really is, of course they will. And hopefully as time goes, they'll become better and more aware of those triggers, because the pain of the breakup itself and the disappointment that not only do you carry, and knowing that they disappointed you, the frustration and conflict that that creates internally for themselves is also something that they'll take forward. And that pain is going to increase to such a degree that it will get our attention. And I think, gosh, I got to stop doing this. This isn't serving me. This is really difficult. And when we think about that factor of pain that's basically begging for our attention, that is going to be the thing that finally gets our attention. So all that to say, yes, they will carry these patterns into another relationship, though it might impact a different perspective or a different playing out of that conflict that might be different than the one relationship that you're in. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, but I'm sure the person hearing it is like, yeah, but why couldn't they have felt that with me? You know, like, why couldn't our relationship dynamics make them realize the pain that they're causing so then they stop doing these things? I totally understand that, because I know this heartbreak pain is one of the worst places you can be in a relationship, feeling like you loved them so much and you really wanted this relationship to continue, but for whatever reason they decided it couldn't. There's nothing like that feeling where some people feel like they're the person that their partners date before they find the one, you know, like everyone seems to break up with them and then they go on to the next person and then that's the person they end up marrying. That's painful. And I think it creates so much doubt within yourself.
I want to talk about that doubt for a little bit. I want our listeners to understand that why our brain starts to resource for all the things that are wrong with me in a relationship when something happens like this, when the relationship comes to a close, is the place within my own psyche that I have the most control. So if it's a problem that I'm creating, then I can do something about it. So it's amazing how my brain will start to resource, well, here's why this didn't work. It's because you did this, or you didn't do that, or you said this, or you didn't say that. And my brain can pull and extract anything from the many messes that we as human beings make in totality. And if it's my fault, right, then I'm in control and I can fix it and I can do better and I can improve and I can do more. And that's the most empowered place as a human being that I can approach this very painful thing that is happening to me. However, it's also the thing that causes me to dismantle myself, because very often you'll find in relationships that it has so much less to do with you and more to do with the internal experience that the person is wrestling with, that the skills that the person may or may not have, and the understanding of themselves in relationships in regards to how they interact with others. And the experience overall can be an experience where it teaches me what I want more of in my relationships going forward, which is really important if I'm looking. And it can also teach me what it is I need to be mindful of that I don't want to repeat next time. And so very often the reason why we repeat is I'm learning myself how I show up in the relationship. Not that something's wrong with me, but I'm probably not taking away the thing that doesn't work for me and the thing that does work for me, so that as I move in progression, I can get better at choosing something that really resonates and works for me. I can very quickly, as a human being, turn into somebody who just wants a warm body next to me because my heart has been broken so many times. And I start dismantling myself and making up, instead of empowering myself with that information, I can make it up that I'm less than. And so then pretty soon everything looks pretty good. And we don't realize it's a setup for the next round that's coming, right? And that's going to teach me something too. It's amazing how it will very precisely kick my ass as it escalates the pain to show me that I'm going in the wrong direction in regards to what I'm making up is true about myself and about relationships overall, instead of using it as the precious intel that it absolutely is. Wisdom is earned, the good news, bad news, right? I have to live through and extract the good news and the lessons out of it in order for it to empower me as I move forward. And if I don't have any idea how to do that, then I'm probably going to go in a digressed direction of thinking less and less and less of myself and tolerating more and more and more of what I don't want and what really doesn't work for me, right? So that just becomes more excruciating because I'm not even really realizing what it is that worked in that last relationship that I want to make sure works on the next. I'm not really paying attention to anything like the red flags that we talk about, right? I'm too busy imploding on myself to pay attention to any of that. So I'm likely to get into more and more escalated versions of what it is I don't want.
Yeah, that was good. The next question is, this is exactly what I'm going through right now. He realized he doesn't have capacity to handle my emotions, so he exited the relationship. Would there be a point where he might work on himself and come back to me?
Yes, there is a point where he could work on himself and come back. And there would have to be several factors that would work in tandem with that idea. I also want to caution us here with great love and respect. This is often a place that we can experience what I call compassionate cruelty. And let me explain compassionate cruelty. Compassionate cruelty are places that I'm trying to protect myself by thinking, okay, they're just going to come back. There's still hope, which hope can be just as much an empowering emotion as it can be a dismantling emotion. And that's what I mean by compassionate cruelty and keeping the hope alive. It prevents me from being able to extract what it is I need in order to move forward myself. It also puts you in a position where you're waiting. You're waiting to see if they work on themselves. You're waiting to see if they're going to come back to you. And anytime we wait as a human being, it is truly a gift. I say this often, but it really is, because anytime I put my own personal life and progression on hold, I'm going to pay a price for that. And very often the price is high. And so what I would encourage instead of that compassionate cruelty is that we embrace what is happening, as difficult as it is, learn from that, extract what it is I am experiencing and need to know so that as I go forward, I have some intel that I can operate from that's going to help me improve. And as I am improving, if they end up doing the same, then when we come back together, everybody's going to be in a better place. Opportunities to actually create a 2.0 or a 3.0 are much better than if one person is told they have to go off and work on themselves and I'm just going to sit here and wait and hope. Because what happens is there's going to be breakdown for you as one person is improving, and very often they come back and that's not necessarily a setup that we want for the best chances of things getting better for everybody. So you have to think of it like, if I got to keep moving as they're continuing to move. And then when we meet again down the road, we'll both be in a much better place in order to attempt maybe rebuilding a relationship. That's going to increase your odds exponentially.
The next one is, but as the discarded, let's say you understand this and can reconcile that this is probably what happened. If you both know how deeply you love one another, what do? You work on you and wait, hope, stay neutral, especially if they know they need to be alone and have this conversation with themselves. Do they come back? How do you fix it from there to help them recognize it in the future if it were to be rebuilt? This just happened to me after 5 beautiful years, and it's so upsetting.
That is a painful place. I mean, we can take ourselves right back to places and spaces where I remember myself like pulling off the side of a freeway exit ramp because I just couldn't keep it together. I was crying so hard I couldn't see. And so I had to pull off. And it does feel like you're discarded. And we're trying to think of why this happened and how to prevent it again going forward. And so I just really, really want you to know I understand that. And also, what I have learned is number one, love, right? The experience of love is an expansive quality. So often we talk about it as though that there is this one, and that one person is very special at this point in time in our lives. But as you grow and you get older and you kind of live through relational experiences, you understand that there are many people that you can love very deeply. Many people that will touch your life and help you grow. The relationship that I'm thinking about where I had to pull off the exit ramp and pull over, I remember him saying, I'm going to give him teary now. I remember him saying, "You're a queen. Why don't you behave like it?" And that used to just stick with me. He'd call me Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea, you're a queen. Come on, you can rise. You can do better. And I was so stuck at that point in time in history where I really didn't have a really great working acumen of myself. And the way I would show up in relationships was very much that of the common pleaser, right? Where I'm going to be enough and do enough and show you that I can sacrifice everything in order to love you. And that would make him uneasy. That would really make him uncomfortable. And so even though we spent years together, it was a blended relationship with the kids and such, and the kids were so close and connected. He had a difficult time with two things: me kind of relying on him for my own sense of well-being, number one. And number two, putting together that many numbers of kids and the responsibility and the pressure that that would put on him. And I mention this because I want you to see it has nothing to do with love. The love that we had between us was incredible. It really was. We deeply cared and loved about each other. And sometimes that idea of, yeah, but love, it will conquer all and it will take us to the promised land. And if we have love, we have everything. And I want you to know that those ideas create more internal suffering and strife in moments like this because we feel like the love that we experience doesn't count. We get to just throw it all out now when it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to. And with great love and respect for us all who risk again and love and open ourselves up, you have to understand that that is a lie. That is such a lie. We can love people very deeply and we can have deep connections with others. But when you start working it all out in regards to co-creating a life together, there might be things that bring about great concern and great pressure and responsibility. There might be things that are going to be asked of you to be in this relationship that you're not so sure you're going to be okay with long term. And this could be kids in my particular case. This could be health challenges. This could be sexual preferences. This could be financial challenges. This could be conflicts and challenges that each of us are having individually, and it can be our challenges that we have collectively. So there's so many moving parts here for us to sort through, hence why we want to date and explore this relationship and give it a run to the very best of our ability. And so we discount all of those many moving parts and pieces because we love each other. And we think that love is just going to see us through and take care of all of those very important things that we need to also sift through, because I can be in love with you, but this may not be a good partner for me to co-create with, day-to-day life with. And I personally, because I'm a slow learner, I guess, had to go through several of those to recognize that I can love you very much. I can enjoy being with you and you with I, but there's so many other pieces that need to be considered and thought of when we're thinking about blending our lives to live a future together. Any stories either of you have that you want to stack on there?
I do have one breakup story of Jack, my current fiance, broke my heart when I was 18 years old in the first 1.0 version of our relationship. On the day that he broke up with me, he texted me the breakup, and I was just devastated. And I was driving to work, and I worked in downtown Sacramento at Bob's law firm, Dad, at this time. And I got pulled over by CHP. And it was like right after you are kind of merging onto, what's it called? Business
80?
Business 80. So I was getting onto Business 80, and there's like this one little triangle, and he pulled me off in that part, and I was sobbing. And then he got on his loudspeaker, and he was like, "Ma'am, this actually isn't a good place to pull out. Please pull forward, and I'll tell you where we're going to pull over next time." And I had to navigate re-merging back into freaking cars going 65 miles an hour. And I was 18 years old. I was not a very experienced driver. I was sobbing my eyes out because I was heartbroken. It was pure chaos. So I did it. And then he pulled me over to the next part. And he came up to my window and he said, "Ma'am, it's just a speeding ticket." And I was like, "Officer, I'm not crying because you pulled me over. My boyfriend broke up with me." It was just the worst, most chaotic experience of my life.
Did he still give you a ticket or not just
Yes,
a warning? At least give you just a warning.
He still gave me a ticket. I couldn't believe it. I still think he thought that I made myself cry to get out of the ticket.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah. But no, it was real emotion.
Go.
Yeah, I think that's a really big one. I really do. I think it creates so much suffering when we feel like somebody that I loved is letting go of me. And I think that there has to be some kind of a self-deprecating reason why.
It also reminds me of when you used Topaz's dog and a bone analogy in one of the recent What Would Stacy Say videos, and I'll repeat it for all the listeners. Our brain is like a dog going to fetch a bone. So if we are asking ourselves, why did they break up with me? Like I was doing and like you're doing right now. Why did they leave me? How could they let me go? All that you have access to is your own mind. So your brain is going to go fetch anything it can grab a hold of because it wants the bone. Our brain does not like unfinished stories. And that sucks when we don't have access to the person that could actually answer our questions, or they can't answer our questions because they won't talk to us. All we're left with is ourselves. And we typically choose the stories that hurt us the most.
Well, for the reason that we talked about earlier, just a moment ago, because it really is my most empowered place. If it's about me, then I can fix it. I can do something about it. I can be in control of it. But boy, oh boy, do I hit myself hard in those places and spaces. And we also have to remember that a lot of it I'm just making up.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're only looking at that one lens or that one perspective, and then we're going to spiral there without looking at, okay, what didn't work for you? How about if we look at that one? How about if we look at the things that you loved about the relationship so that you can be mindful of recreating them somewhere else in the future? We want to hang on to those, but we never go there. It's very common we don't. And so then I'm just left with this self-deprecating story that makes me feel less than. And so when I step back into a relationship the next time, I'm coming at it from that place as though I'm not worthy. I'm not deserving of love. I need to sacrifice more of myself, give more in order to be loved and for them to stick around. And that's the last place we want to go when we really think about getting better at this. Understanding myself is the thing we're getting better at. Understanding myself, understanding what works and doesn't work for me, and then being mindful of what worked and didn't work, right? For those I'm in relationship with, help me find, as I go forward, more and more and more of a fit and a match for myself. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I get better at relationships just like I get better at anything else by doing it. I wasn't very experienced in your story. And that's very often our problem is I'm not very experienced and I'm not utilizing the experience that I'm having to help me understand more about myself, about love, about life.
Well, in that specific relationship, in the first version of Jack and I's relationship, I could not have been more of a poster child for anxious attachment if I tried. I was out of control. Like I needed constant reassurance, constant him letting me know that he wasn't going to leave me, like abandonment wounds. I was just a hot mess. So it wasn't a surprise that he broke up with me if I look at it now. But back then it was like world ending. And I didn't know how I was going to survive. It was awful. And that feeling of knowing that there's nothing you can do to get them to come back, that makes you feel even crazier because it makes you contemplate doing some things that you wouldn't normally do. And you think it's going to work, but when you look at it now as a more secure, settled person, you're like, that would have driven them even further away. It doesn't feel like you're not in your right mind, but you're just so desperate for them to like validate you and tell you everything's okay and say that this is all a joke. That's all you want.
Well, as I've revealed on the podcast before, that particular place and space turned me into a stalker for real, right? And I was convinced that all I had to do was just show him how incredible I was and that I was going to be willing to do all of these things and just get him to go out with me and have a conversation with me. And I'm going to explain everything and it's going to be okay. And so I'd literally just drop in on him or I'd track him somewhere and hello. I mean, like, I just needed my one moment. I just needed my moment. And as you said, I mean, very often in those states of mind, it drives them further away.
Mm-hmm.
Just to be clear for the listener, this is pre-Tom Stacy behavior.
Did you feel like you needed to vindicate yourself there? She's really not crazy like that anymore, I swear.
Heavens know who I might have called had that happened to me.
Jeez.
Next question.
Well, the conversation that we just had kind of leads perfectly into the next question.
Here we go.
Should the person that was left reach out and let them know that you're aware of what took place and try to help them?
So this comes back to compassionate cruelty. Often the way I was left has a lot to do with that as well. I'm not going to really give you the answer, or I'm going to give some kind of an excuse, or I'm going to just drop the ball entirely and kind of slide out the back door very often because I do care.
I feel like this is a similar question to if a person who is listening to our podcast would ask us, should I send this episode to my partner? It's kind of the same feeling behind that, where the person who was dumped says, oh, this makes so much sense, what Stacy said in the What Would Stacy Say video. Should I reach out to the person and say, I get it now. You had so much internal conflict and you didn't know how to express it. Is that true? I answered this comment because I'm Mom 2's proxy on social media. And I said kind of what I just said now. Like, it could go one of two ways. You could say what I just said and they could feel like you finally understood them, or they could feel like you're really crossing a boundary and you're saying stuff that I don't want to hear right now. And I feel a little like you've invaded my privacy a bit by even sending me this message.
100%. So in that particular context, it's like, be mindful of how it ended. If the lines of communication are still open between the two of you, then yeah, maybe you could send something that you found insightful, that we're both still in communication about trying to understand what happened for the two of us. In that particular case, yes, that would be great. And it would be very kind and considerate of you to do so. However, if the lines of communication have been closed, and that door is not open for the two of you to continue to dialogue and reflect back on the relationship and what you're learning from it and what you both experienced in that exchange, and some revealing conversations that are usually very intimate. It's not just all of a sudden they've gone missing or they said it's not you, it's me, and they've moved on. Then you probably want to let it be, just to kind of give you some indicators in regards to how to make that distinctive choice. Because as you said, Brooke, it could go either way. You just need to be a little more sensitive to the nuances of what's actually playing out. If you're using it as an excuse, like I did, to reach out and re-engage with them, and you're going to kind of bait them because you got this really cool piece of content that you're just wanting to demonstrate to them that I get it, I understand, probably best not to do that. That would be like me kind of driving by and just thinking I had one more moment to prove and demonstrate that I am the girl of your dreams. Maybe this time you'll see it.
I would say in doing this work for as long as all three of us have, this particular context is a very slippery slope. Mm-hmm. So you want to be very mindful. First, check in with yourself. Why is it that you're so wanting to share? Not weaponize this resource, not try to prove how enlightened you become all of a sudden. Because remember, we have to think about the person that we're sharing this with and what he or she may think as well and what's their experience. And that's hard when we're upset anyway. So I just would urge caution, really would.
I would say if you're on the fence and you don't know, err on the side of caution and don't send it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's not clear that we are in the process of trying to understand our relationship and we are having those kinds of reveal intimate moments, don't send it. Get double down in regards to understanding your piece of it and putting your own emotional sense of self back together. That would be a better use of your time than trying to get them to re-engage with you at this point in time.
Okay, the next one isn't really a question, it's more of a comment, but I think it's a very prevalent belief that people hold around their partners if they do something wrong, and I would love for you to just digest the comment and then respond to it. Communicate the problem/concern. Disappearing and leaving the other half clueless is incredibly selfish, emotionally immature, and harmful to the discarded. In other words, grow up and realize everyone is affected in the relationship, not just you. You're not the center of this relationship or world. And when you get into an adult relationship, it requires you act like a responsible and considerate adult. That type of action is not justified. If you don't feel like you can make that decision at the time, stay out of relationships. I'm tired of tiptoeing around these people. It is what it is, and they need to be accountable.
Well, I hear you.
Yeah.
And that's a very logical response, right? That
Exactly.
makes a ton of sense. And if it could just be so simple, like if it
Then
could
we would
just
all be
work
happy.
like that, we wouldn't have any need for this podcast or
Yeah, we wouldn't have a
body
job.
of work. Yeah,
No.
we wouldn't have a business.
But as the human beings that we are so much more nuanced than that. And I want you to think about all the places where you can overestimate yourself and you can underestimate yourself when you're pursuing things that you genuinely want. There's so many places in the human journey where we don't know what we don't know. And I can think that I'm so ready to step into a relationship. I can think that I'm going to knock it out of the park. And then as it starts to play out, I start to maybe realize that I've overestimated my ability or where I am, or I've underestimated what I can give and what it is I can contribute to this relationship. When somebody bottoms out like that, I'm going to use this phrase again. I think this is third or fourth, compassionate cruelty, is I very often don't want to confess or admit the over or underestimation of my own capabilities. And so what am I going to do? I want to be kind. I don't want to mislead you. I'm probably going to have a very difficult time sharing with you what's really going on for me. I may not even be able to put that into words. And so I'm going to do the kindest thing I know how to do, which is just take a dip out the back door. It's hard and it is cruel, but I'm doing it from a compassionate place. I'm really embarrassed and shameful and guilty because I've either overestimated or underestimated where this was going to take me and what it was going to bring up for me. So let's be honest here. That's what we do, right? I hope this is going to translate. I really do. If it were so simple to walk into a clothing store and to be able to explore the things on the rack and then be able to approach it with some logical thing. I'm going to say, I like that one. I like that one. I like that one. And I'm just going to take this one and I'm not going to try it on. How many times do I over or underestimate that experience only to get it home and go, oh shit, this is kind of tight. Damn it. It's short. God, it works great around my waist, but it's too tight. I can't get it over my ass. That's a common problem for me, right? The waist is too small. It works if I could just get it over my ass, but it's a challenge. It's a problem. I know that seems like a very, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to think of the word. It's a very, maybe a nonsensical or ridiculous analogy, but it really is true. Like I have to try on relationships. I have to pursue them. I have to get into them to know if they're genuinely a good fit for me. I am not going to know that any other way. And I can explore the world and go, oh, that one's good. That one's good. That one's good. Wow. I really like the way that this one's feeling for me. And then I have to step in and I have to go deeper in order to know if it's truly going to work, not just for me, but for you too. And we totally underestimate all of that. We think that because we've had this emotional exchange and this intense moment and we've shared a lot of ourselves with each other, that's beautiful. But then it's supposed to equal this. And it doesn't. Very often, as we're all on our personal growth journeys and trying to figure ourselves out, there's so many things I don't know that I don't even know that come up when I find myself in moments and conversations in places and spaces with other people. And that gets so underestimated. I think it's very under talked about as well. And that sets us up for additional disappointment as well.
Also, I would like to point out that communicating the problem and concern, realizing everyone is affected in the relationship, acting like a responsible adult, all of those things are skills. Like, those are concrete, tangible relationship skills. We talked about this in our last episode, and this was actually a comment I was referencing in my brain because it is so logical. Like, we all believe that our partners and everyone in the relationship world should do those things. But if we ask, where did you learn how to do them? Most people wouldn't be able to tell us. Some of them sure learned how because they grew up in a healthy family of origin and their parents taught them how to regulate their nervous systems and express their emotions and communicate with respect. A lot of people have never learned those things. But for some reason, we expect that when you say, okay, we're in a relationship now, that you're just supposed to do them. You know?
Yeah. Well, and they've all got to be practiced too. Don't forget that part. And these are things that you'll practice for the rest of your life. And it's like we're wanting to step into these relationships and be like the 50-year-old couple that totally understand each other and have spent years and years and years and hours and hours and hours sharing, the evolution of this version of me and the next version of me. And I also want to just point out, there is not a journey as a human being that you step into where you don't have a surprise about what it is. Like, I want you to think about getting a degree. There's places and spaces where you're having to do the thing to get the degree. And then you go, oh, holy cow. I didn't know this was part of the deal. I didn't know that was going to be required, or I didn't know it was going to impact me like this. On the front side, I feel like I can knock it out of the park. But when I'm in it, that's a completely different story. And I would say that's true having a child. You think this is
adopting a Rottweiler puppy.
Yes. Like, oh, what could possibly go wrong? Well, that's the classic, right? Because I don't know what I don't know, but I'm going to learn it now and I'm going to experience now and I'm going to be surprised. Starting a business. I could think of buying a new car.
Buying a house.
Yeah.
Based on what you both just have shared, I would really love for this whole finding the one and we have this day of celebration and then we check that off, to rather just reverse that whole thing and say, you know what? This has been an awesome start. And then let's skill up and really plan for the inevitable that's going to come for every human being, 8 billion of us or so on the planet. It's just life. Especially now, none of us have ever lived through this era of history. It doesn't matter where you're listening from. Okay? I mean, there's this convergence of literally everything that we used to know and how we lived and what worked. There's not going to anymore. So the requirements have literally gone 10x up. Certainly relationally they have. And so that it's, if you've listened to us, we're very, as a family and body of work, like, we've got to understand this is the most dynamic, fluid, ever-changing thing we're ever going to step into. A relationship with another human being? Are we kidding ourselves? Good gracious.
Like I said, we just expect it to go well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you've decided to be in a relationship.
Well, and to just kind of bring this home, the other part of the relationship journey is when I really care about you and you care about me, you know what's principled in the next journey that we're going to have to navigate and figure out how to get through, because everybody has to go through it. It's like a developmental piece of a relationship. is all of my fears and insecurities are going to come up along with all of my hopes and dreams. And we're going to have to figure out how to navigate those things in order for us to be able to sustain what it is we've put in until this moment. And like I said, the kicker is the more I care and the more I want this to go well, the more heightened my own fears and insecurities become, because all I'm consumed by, what if this doesn't work? And what if I have to let go? What if they don't really love me? And all the what ifs hit us when we find somebody that we really want to co-create life together. And that is normal. That is not an exceptional side piece at all. Is any couple that you see that have longevity have had to navigate through this place, not just once, but many times over the course of their lifespan. It comes with the territory. And the other thing that I think we forget is that commitment is really easy for us as human beings. It's one of the most easy things that we do. We love finding somebody that I can commit to and promise myself with. What we are terrible at is navigating the inevitable ups and downs that is sure to come as I change and you change and the world in which we live in changes, et cetera. Like, there's a tremendous amount of change that again and again and again, we are going to have to figure out how to navigate through. And that has nothing to do with the deep feelings of love that I feel for you. And I don't know what I don't know. And so you kind of start blending these ideas and concepts together. We can find ourselves where I've underestimated me and where I'm at. There's so much going on, and we hold it as though, oh, I love you, you love me. Okay, good to go. Here we go. We're off to the races. And then we're really hurt by that expectation in the end when we're trying to grapple with the idea of why didn't it go the long haul? And the hardest thing to appreciate about love, and also the thing that makes it so precious, is that there are no guarantees for any of us, number one. And number two, at some point in time, we're all going to have to let go of a special someone. Like, none of us get out of here alive. So we're all going to have to take that journey and that venture on our own. So let's remember the preciousness of this, and that this is a principle of life. It is not based on the shoulders or backs of one person who says, I can't do this. There's so many more parts and pieces to it that we totally underestimate. And so, gosh, if it were just so easy to say, grow up, be an adult, have great communication skills, or don't get into a relationship. Well, guess what? Relationships are the enticing vehicle that cause us to grow and become the person that I have the capacity to be. Otherwise, I wouldn't do half the stuff that I'm called to do in order to expand myself into a future sense of self. I forget about it. But if I can have you, if I have the potential to have an us, okay, I'll do it. Think about the things we do from that vantage point and that perspective that are going to enrich me, expand my perspective, and expand the capacity that I have to be more of me. And because we hold it in the light that we do and not have more of these kinds of conversations, it becomes an insufferable implosion on myself, which very often drives my insecurities and fears. The last thought that I have about this, okay, one last perspective that I just want to reiterate very, very clearly. Sometimes relationships end not because they were wrong, but because they were right for a season. Just think about other parts of your life, in your careers perhaps. We take jobs that teach us important things, jobs that shape us, jobs that help us grow. And later we move on. We don't usually say that the job was a waste of time. We say, that's where I learned this. That's where I gained perspective here. Or how about physical journeys? You might train for a marathon and then decide running isn't your thing. You might decide that you're going to hike halfway up the mountain and realize that the lesson was never about reaching the top. It was about who you became along the way. Even financially, we understand this. Businesses fail. Investments don't always work out. But we still say that that experience taught me something very valuable. For some reason, when it comes to love, we forget all of this. We expect every relationship to be the final destination of our lives and to take us to some promised magical place that we forget we have to co-create with someone else. But sometimes relationships are not forever partnerships. Sometimes they are growth partnerships, and they come into our lives to awaken something deep within us. to show us something about ourselves or others, to condition our emotional muscles so that at some point in time, I can be that resilient, capable human that I just know somewhere deep inside of me I can't. It teaches us what loves feel like. Like sometimes we don't even know what that feeling is until we have it. And it also teaches us what healthy love feels like, or what it feels like when something important is missing. And those lessons are no small thing. They shape the way we step into love going forward. So if you're sitting with the end of a relationship and your mind keeps asking the same questions you have no answers for, try asking yourself these instead. What did this relationship awaken in me? What did I learn about my own capacity to love? What did it teach me about the kind of relationship I want to experience in the future? Because relationships should not be measured only by how long they last, but because they require practice, just like everything else that we become masterful at. Sometimes it needs to be measured by how deeply it impacted us and what I extracted from the experience. That impact often leads to the very skills that help us create something more in line with what you truly desire later on. That is so important for us to understand so that we can give ourselves some grace and some compassion and the person that I loved. Because I'll tell you this, there is no place in the human journey where we give it our all to the very best of our ability. We all want our relationships to go well. And the reason they don't is I start bumping into myself or things that I didn't anticipate. I have over or underestimated where I am in my own human journey. And that's the truth. So as we wrap up here, something really struck us while reading those comments, and many people weren't just hurting from the breakup itself. They were struggling with the confusion afterward and replaying everything in their own minds, questioning everything and trying to understand what happened. And it actually led us to a realization about something we've been teaching for years. It was a little journey that we help support people on called the Love and Limbo Roadmap. It was originally for people going through space and separation in their relationships. But after reading these many comments and engaging with beautiful human souls on social media, it became clear that people going through breakups and heartbreak are experiencing the exact same internal storm. Because the hardest part after something like this isn't just losing the relationship, it's losing your footing within yourself. We've talked about that in this episode today. The doubt, the spinning thoughts, the emotional overwhelm. And that's really what the roadmap is designed to help you with. It's helping you regulate emotionally, get clarity back, reconnect with yourself. And at its core, the work is really about coming home to yourself again. You've given so much to the person that you've loved. And now it's time to turn and give that love to yourself. So if this conversation's resonated with you today, if you're trying to make sense of a breakup that felt confusing or sudden, if you're struggling to find your footing again, I invite you to take a look at the Love and Limbo 30-Day Roadmap. It's designed to help you navigate and understand this very challenging and difficult place. You can click the link in the episode description to learn more about it. Okay, so the follow the fun, right? I was thinking about something that would be a little life-giving because this is a hard conversation and it's very weighted. And it can feel very overwhelming just talking about it. I myself have cried through this episode as I'm completing it. So I wanted you to think about the one thing that's still yours. Because very often we can think about all the millions of things that I gave away or that I sacrificed or that were a waste of my time. Breakups can feel like your whole identity and thinking has been dismantled. So today, right now, I encourage you to ask yourself, what is one thing about me that this breakup did not take away from me, that I still have intact within me and I know it to be true? Maybe this would be your sense of humor. You can still find it and pull it out and have a good crack up, even though your tears are streaming down your face. Or how about the ability to still love those around you, to still love them deeply in spite of trying to question all of these other things? Maybe it's your resilience, your ability to keep going and put one foot in front of the other in spite of going through this very difficult place. or being that friend, or staying connected and remembering to reach for my dreams. Or maybe something entirely outside of anything I've mentioned here, but what is something about you is still intact, and focus on that. In fact, write it down and put it in a space and a place where you can visibly remember it. And then after you have one, challenge yourself to find 2 more, and then maybe 3 more. Remember, your brain is a faithful dog. It will go and find what you ask of it. So go ask a better question and help you resource good things about yourself that are still very much intact. The song for the day is Take Back My Love by Mono Deluxe. And this song I specifically chose because it's exceptionally upbeat. I would like for you to put on some headphones and go for a walk as you listen to it, because it is absolutely going to help fill you with some really good feelings, some really good endorphins. It's going to help you take a little bit of that love that you've given so freely to that person and give it to yourself just today. So it's got a good beat. It's going to help you flood yourself with some endorphins by moving your body. And again, you're going to start giving that love to the person who really needs it. You need that. Thank you so much for being here in the Love Shack with us today. If this conversation moved you or helped you feel a little more seen or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing it with someone you care about. We can't share this conversation we've had today enough. I can't emphasize that we have some kind of a realistic perspective about what it means to truly co-create with another human being outside of the fairy tales and the myths that absolutely, when our hearts are broken, continues to just shatter them even more. And if it's actually helped you personally, please consider giving us a review. We would love to hear from you. We are here walking this journey alongside of you. That's one of the things that we promise in the roadmap is, hey, we're going to walk this journey with you, and we're going to make sure that you find your footing again. And because we've lived it and we've helped hundreds of people through this path, we're certain that we can help you too. Remember, love isn't enough, but skills are. Learn them, live them, and practice them today. Bye-bye for now.
All right, it's time to leave the Love Shack. But before we part ways, we want you to know our door is always open, and we'll leave the porch light on, ready to welcome you back whenever you need a dose of relationship wisdom. For more resources and tools, visit us at loveshacklive.com to dive deeper into the topics we've explored and find additional support for your relationship journey. Stay connected by subscribing to our podcast. Thank you for being part of our Love Shack Live community.